afternoon, whenever you're listening to this, welcome to the internet's most sophisticated wrestling podcast, discussing the weekly aspects of it all, right here on
The Bald Monkeys Wrestling Podcast.
Well now, it is Saturday morning, and what time is it? The answer is way too early. Way too early. I think all three of us are pretty tired at the moment, but the show must go on, and because we don't get paid to do this, but we do it for the love, we
don't get paid?
I get paid at my other job. If you're getting paid at this job, then you need to tell me how that's happening.
Yeah, if you're getting paid, teach me how, please.
But welcome, everybody, to the Bald Monkeys Wrestling Podcast. The only podcast that brings together the baldest individuals on the internet. Except, I guess, Steven isn't bald.
Yeah, and Steven.
If you were with us last week, then you've had time to accept the truth that is the fact that the single stuffed Oreo is far superior to the double stuffed Oreo.
So many people say you're wrong. So many people. And
all of those people are actually wrong themselves. It's interesting, right? So any of you listeners that think I'm wrong when I say that, you're actually the wrong one. Look at yourself in the mirror. Understand that I don't know how a delicious cookie works. It's okay. It's all right.
Double stuffed all the way.
You know what?
It's a perfect edit to just sit there and have Jimmy say, I don't know how a delicious cookie works. That's that edit that we need to get out of this whole podcast today.
Make it a sound bite or something.
Here's the problem.
It's my new ringtone.
Here's the problem. I don't edit the podcast very much. And again, if it does get edited, I edit it, not you.
I have a computer. I could figure it out.
I could Google. I could go on the Google web and figure it out. So let's just get right into the most annoying thing of the week, which happened, I believe, in my personal opinion, last night on SmackDown. Goldberg. And here's the thing about Goldberg, right? I had convinced myself that I was okay with Goldberg coming back under the assumption that Matt Riddle was going to come out. And that never happened. Instead, we're going to get Goldberg versus The Fiend.
The only good outcome out of this is the no-sell from the spear and the jackhammer, right? Like, that's the only decent outcome out of this match. Otherwise, what's the point of even having this match other than going over there and trying to make a bunch of money in Saudi Arabia, right?
No. The best outcome for this should be when Goldberg's coming to the ring, the Fiend pulls him underneath the ring and they don't ever have a match because it doesn't need to happen. I grew up being a Goldberg fan. After his last couple bouts, he needs to stay away from the ring. If it was him, Matt Riddle, that makes sense. There was talks about maybe him and Sting having a match, which I wasn't for, but that even made more sense. But don't stick him in the title picture again just because he's Goldberg and you're trying to make money. Like, it's stupid.
I don't know that I care anymore, man. Why don't we just have him win? Have him beat The Fiend. I mean, who cares about The Fiend anymore? They're not using him right. I mean, literally, if we gone week after week after week after week, I have to get on here and say the same damn thing about, well, he shouldn't have a title, and they're using him wrong this way and this way and this way, with how much I enjoyed the character early on. Like, maybe I just give up on this character too. I mean, they're not writing him in an interesting way.
I think his promos are still good. I mean, I watched the promo again back from last night, and it was fun and interesting. Him as a reporter, and the bottom line talking about Ramblin' Rabbit dead at 27. You know, those little things are interesting, and he can still do a good promo. I think they're just putting him into storylines or putting him into matches that aren't intriguing. The Daniel Bryan thing was okay, but I think that's just because it's Daniel Bryan. Really, if there's going to be history with everybody he fights, where's the history with Goldberg? There is no history. It would have made more sense to get Taker to come back and finally get this handoff match that we're all just begging for.
But I mean, so we're saying then, well, half the stuff that the Bray Wyatt stuff is dealing with is good, and then the other half's not.
It's not the ring stuff. Let's be honest. It's not the in-ring stuff. Like, I'm not impressed with any of the in-ring stuff that's happened with The Fiend. It's all the promos. No, it's all the promos, all the backstage stuff.
Yeah, I mean...
Yeah, I agree. His matches have been fine. It's very cookie cutter, nothing, and then he starts no-selling everything, and then you know it's about to be over. I think they could do a good setup, a good storyline if they wanted to, but they're trying to use the fact that he's this monster who nobody can beat, and it's like they're playing to that PG mindset that the kids are going to think, oh my God, this guy's indestructible. But at some point, somebody's going to beat him, unless they just say, well, maybe nobody can beat him. Let's just make a new title and not consider this a title anymore, kind of thing. It's stupid.
He needs to just lay the title down and walk away. Like, I feel like that's the only thing that can get us back to where we want to be. Him just deciding the title's not important, laying it down and walking away, and then somebody like going away for a little bit and then coming back again and attacking whoever has the title. Like, it's more fun when he's chasing everybody and spooking everybody out than the other way around. We've said that 100 times. It's just, I feel like they have a great character and they're force feeding it down our throats the wrong way.
And are we finally done with Roman Reigns, Baron Corbin, or do we have one more damn match with those two?
I'm fine with that.
You know what I'm not fine with, though? You know what I'm not fine with, and you might disagree with this. Because I'm going to float over to NXT too. You can't just do, I mean, as good of matches as people can have, you can't just keep doing matches with the same people all the time. Like, I don't care how much the crowd chants fight forever. It gets boring after a while. AKA, I don't need to see Keith Lee fight Dominik Dijakovic at all. Separate them. They've fought so many times. We don't need to see them fight again. I don't need to see Baron Corbin and Roman Reigns fight again. Put up interesting matches. These guys can have matches with other people.
I don't need to see the Young Bucks versus the Lucha Brothers.
You're right.
Again.
You're right. We don't need to see that.
I think everyone has every single show has an example of it.
But
the only one that I think we were enjoying,
the bad one right now.
No, but the only one that we were enjoying and clamoring for was Buddy Murphy and Aleister Black. We were fine with seeing that over and over again because they kept doing something different. It was interesting.
Yeah, but they stopped doing that. But it's fine that they stopped doing that. But the problem was, here Buddy Murphy has like this great storyline, and what the fuck does Aleister Black have? Nothing. His story's been weak. They've been dropping the ball with him. He's been an impressive wrestler, and what does he have to show for that?
Let me jump back to NXT because I think I'm okay with one more match for the title with Keith Lee and Dijakovic. I think it makes sense to have a final match for the title now that the title's there, because obviously you're taking the Dream, who's back, and putting him in a storyline. So I'm okay with that one more time, seeing these two go at it if it's something interesting. But I don't know if they got anything else. I'd be impressed. It's a takeover. So have we ever been disappointed by a takeover? We've been disappointed by a takeover match. Cassius Ohno has given us a couple of those, but I'm okay with one more match for them. That's the one that I'm gonna fight you on a little bit. I won't fight you on some of the Roman Reigns, Baron Corbin. I feel like they just don't have anything else for Roman Reigns right now. Like they're just holding off until I guess he goes against the Fiend at WrestleMania. So what's the best thing to do is keep building him up by giving him the best heel they got.
There's other people though. I mean, he can have individualized programs with any of the people in that group. It doesn't have to be Baron Corbin every time.
Well, let's be honest. SmackDown's not well written right now.
None of it's well
not.
written. All of it's not well written. It drives me crazy.
Now, no, come on now, man. Look what Angel Garza did this week. You can't tell me the Angel Garza stuff all week long wasn't great.
Well, but is it great because it's well written, or is it great because he's a great wrestler?
It's great because he's a great character and wrestler who took okay writing and made it great. How's that answer?
But we're talking about one-off appearance. Are you sure that he made the best out of that with the writing that he was given, or is it you being excited to see him on the show? Because again, there's different levels of wrestling fans. We've seen him wrestle before. We know how good of a wrestler is. The fucking crowd wasn't in that program at all. They weren't getting excited for Angel Garza. They didn't know who he was. They weren't getting excited during that match. They were getting excited because Rey Mysterio was there, but that's different.
Right. But that's typical of any, call up. If they don't do any promos or anything, they don't know who it is. I mean, they were flat for Aleister Black a couple times back, like a month or two ago when he came out. Like there was no crowd reaction. It depends where you are. We've always said that. The crowd makes a big part of it. I think Garza, dude, like I've said it 100 times on Twitter right now. He reminds me so much of Eddie Guerrero. Like I feel like he's got something. He's just got that it. And if they give him the freedom and some writing to work with some of these wrestlers, and he's got some decent mic skills because he could speak, in a concise way in a sentence, unlike Humberto Carrillo, who's got to speak in Spanish every time he speaks. I just think there's something there.
I think he definitely has potential, but I have a feeling like sometimes we overhype moments and we give too many passes to the writing team. The writing team's awful. It's awful on both of the main shows. It really is. It's awful on both of the main shows and half of NXT actually. And then for AEW, it's awful for half of AEW. So what it makes writing in AEW and WWE and NXT so flippin' difficult? Because sometimes I feel like, oh no, all we got to do is kind of like, simplistic good guy, bad guy writing to make certain like lower level storylines work, and they don't really do a good job of that. They don't put enough into anything other than like the top 2 or 3 storylines on any given show.
I agree the writing could be bad, but the whole angle y'all are talking about with the call ups, and I feel like they're planting the seeds for the Latino World Order. They're bringing up, giving so much camera time, so much mic time. They're trying to figure out people's skills and everything. That I feel like we're leading to that. And if they're leading to that, then I don't care who they keep putting in or whatever when it comes to the setup. It's going to be great in the end. freaking Roman Reigns thing and Baron Corbin, I think they have nothing to do with either one of them, but they're still considered two of the bigger names that they have on SmackDown, and they're going to run with it. Just the same thing I feel like they're doing with Braun Strowman, is they have nothing for him.
Well, here's my question for you, though. You say it's obvious they're building for a Latino world order. Are they? Or did Andrade get himself suspended and they're just doing damage control?
They could be doing damage control if they wanted to bring other people in. I think if this wasn't part of the end game, they would have had him drop the U.S. title, not just get taken out so he can come back with the belt. It's not that big of a punishment. It's going to be a slap on the wrist. And part of that probably has to do with, him being engaged to Charlotte Flair. He's put himself in a position of power, which is, everybody does it, but it makes more sense long term if they try to book the factions.
So
I've said that before.
I know, but you made one mistake there, right? One big mistake. And this is something that I've been accused of. Chris has been accused of, and you've probably been accused of it before. But I'm going to accuse you of it again. You are writing too well for this show in your brain. You that's a very good angle. I think that angle, it's a great angle, but they're not doing that. You use that term long term. When's the last time they did the long term thing? I mean, the only thing that they did that was the right long term move, I think, that we talked about recently was they gave Keith Lee the North American Championship instead of letting Vince take him up to the mothership and push him to the moon. And that was the better thing for him. But again, I just don't know that that's the case. I mean, after they do a little program within this month with Angel Garza, does Garza just get pushed to the wayside and Andrade comes back and just does his thing?
I mean, odds are yes, but I like the turn. I like to have faith in him long term. I like to have faith that they're gonna right the stupid ship that they're on. I know it's not Cesaro with the European Championship, but this could be good.
Well, I mean that's a pipe dream story, but I guess the problem is that with the couple weeks off that we've taken doing this podcast, we are getting pretty close, or we're very close to doing this podcast for an entire year. And in that year, I feel like there are certain things that we've talked about that we have a record of that is just one big broken record discussion between, the 4 or 5 or 6 of us that do this podcast. And part of that is story.
Just begging for it. Just begging for fun story. Here's where it's at. Did we get exactly what we wanted in the Attitude Era? Did we get exactly what we wanted back when we were kids? The exact story that should have been written?
No, not every time.
It doesn't matter if I get the exact right thing, right?
No. Hey, I agree with everything you guys have just talked about. I think we all agree. But I think the question is, have we become, and Jim, you talked about this when we got into the new year, have we become way too critical of the perfect story, the perfect match, the perfect angle always being on TV? Or is it a situation where it's they should be given the opportunity to try things, even if they're terrible and they fail?
Well, yeah, but they don't try things.
They're trying the same bad things over and over.
Yeah. So if they're trying different things, I don't have an issue. I mean, why the heck at the beginning do you think I was defending Bobby Lashley, Lana, Rusev? It was different. They were, I mean, it's not different historically necessarily, but it was, but it was a different storyline based on what was going on. So it was yeah, they suck, but I don't totally hate it, and I was saying that. I mean, but then it's wore its welcome out, of course, because it just really didn't work, and the wrestlers really couldn't salvage it at that point. But stuff like that, I don't have a problem with. If they're going after certain storylines and they're trying different things to make it work. I mean, wouldn't even be, as much as I bicker with you about this damn Chad Gable getting hit in the head and then turning into Kurt Angle. Honestly, if they did that angle, it'd be a hell of a lot more interesting than the same direct that they feed us every week.
I'm still holding out hope for that, man. Like, he keeps getting his butt kicked by Sheamus. Maybe it's just going to be a bunch of concussions, and all of a sudden he comes back as Kurt Angle. I mean, there's still a chance.
I mean, what are our main
It'd be
storylines?
terrible for press.
What are our main storylines? So let's go through it. Like, what are the only storylines that matter right now on Raw?
The only storylines that matter are McIntyre, Brock Lesnar building for WrestleMania.
Okay. That's one.
I guess Becky
The Usos and Miz and Morrison. I mean,
That's a
the
good
New
one.
Day and Miz and Morrison.
So that's SmackDown, right?
Yeah. And tag titles, which is nice to see. I'm trying to think, like, there's a big old, like, Seth Rollins and AOP and Murphy. What is it? His disciples.
Yeah, against the Viking Raiders, KO and Samoa Joe. Yeah,
Yeah.
Well,
That's been going on for weeks now.
yeah.
Not Baron Corbin. Yeah, Baron Corbin and Roman Reigns has been going on for months. And Braun Strowman and Nakamura has been going on for at least
that one doesn't count. I don't think that one counts. Again, I think that's a story that they're not giving the affection that it deserves. So that's one of those areas where I then draw the line, and I'm like, they're not making that interesting enough.
They're not. Strowman didn't need to have that belt. It honestly, I still stand by the idea that Nakamura's title reign should have ended with Sami Zayn taking it from him. And I'm very upset that they went with Strowman and just.
I would have took Cesaro taking it from him. That would have been fine too.
Yeah, I mean, I think any of those people could have worked. I mean, it's just, but again, the point being, like, you have a couple rungs, a couple things that are interesting, a couple of those storylines I think can get interesting, but oh man, it just feels like it's all, some of that stuff feels like, I mean, well, that's the issue with the Baron Corbin Roman Reigns stuff, right? Because if that's still pushed towards the top of the card on SmackDown, because they've done it so many times at this point, it's lost its luster. So you get to this point where it's like, okay, here are our three main stories, but we're kind of phoning in this one right here because people are starting to turn and people are kind of getting sick of it. I was happy to see this, actually. There was and I think you responded to this post as well, Chris, on Twitter. Somebody had put a tweet out and said, who do you think is the most overrated wrestler in WWE? I think it was. Or maybe it was just overrated wrestler, period. That actually made me smile a little bit. Because there were a lot of people that were putting Becky Lynch. Like a lot. Like almost half of them.
And that's where we're at right now. We're at a story that's been going for, man, how long has it been now?
A long time.
Years?
I don't know if it's been fully 2 years, but like what, she got the belt, at WrestleMania?
Yeah, the man gimmick has been about a year and a half, maybe a little longer, not quite two. The title run has been since Mania last year, and I don't like the fact that they're going to let her have the longest reigning women's championship run and drop it at WrestleMania. Well, she could have dropped it multiple times and let her build her story again. Like, I'm a huge Becky fan. You guys know this. Anybody who listens knows I'm a huge Becky fan. She does not need the title right now. There's no need for her to have the title. She didn't have to keep. It's like she's trying to beat everybody, and that's what it's going to come down to. Is I've beat everybody from Ronda Rousey to Charlotte Flair, and there's nobody that's going to beat me. And then that's how they're going to set up for WrestleMania, and it's very predictable at this point that who's going to beat her and that it's not worth watching some of the programs because it's nothing that's going to make you go, oh, wow, I didn't see that happening.
The whole women's division just seems a bit of a mess right now. Like I don't mind them pushing Rhea Ripley or Bianca Belair even with, teasing Charlotte against everybody basically right now. But it just seems like the women's division now we're gonna get Bailey and Carmella maybe at Superstar Showdown. They didn't want to commit to it, it looks like last night, but that's what they're trying to do. Obviously we're still building towards Sasha and Bailey. I don't know. It's a jumbled mess right now in the women's division. And let's not forget that there's some tag titles as well that we just don't even utilize at all. Asuka's going to get another rematch for the championship next week, and we're not even dealing with the tag title situation. The whole women's division's a jumbled mess.
Why?
I think part of that too is just everybody in the tag team division not healthy, especially the champions, which is sad. I know she had the concussion or whatever in the match against Becky and Charlotte, but she's been a little interactive in little things. Like they're afraid to let her go all in on a match just yet, and they're just trying to give them screen time so people aren't like, well, who's the tag champs anymore? But they got to start putting them in a different program somewhere because, like you said, it keeps happening where the tag titles in the women's division are irrelevant. Nobody cares about them. I mean, even the men's to that extent is starting to become that on Raw, which Seth and Buddy don't need the Raw Tag Team Champions. That was just a way for them to bring the Viking Raiders in there to set up AOP versus the Viking Raiders at some point. But they could have done that without having them drop the belts to Seth and Buddy. Like, keep some relevance and some, interestingness to your tag title division, whether it be male or female. And they don't. They don't seem to care. The only one that I'm kind of in for is the New Day versus Miz and Morrison, and that's solely because I like John Morrison and I like the New Day. So
I don't even think like with the on and off of me watching wrestling, I don't actually think I've watched Morrison wrestle once, which is tragic.
That's not true. You saw him in the Royal Rumble for like 6 seconds.
Well,
we don't speak of that.
He was in and out so fast that he was eliminated before he actually showed up on the screen in Houston. So I saw him from a very far way away.
I actually went back and I've been talking about doing this. I went back and watched the Royal Rumble up until basically Brock gets eliminated, because I really just wanted to feel how loud it was and how the crowd was and how all the reactions were up to that point, because obviously I think we all agree like that was up to that point was really good in the Royal Rumble, and then the rest of the writing the rest of the way out was basically written around Edge's return. Not as well written. It was easier to write that. It's just, okay, Edge is returning, everyone's gonna pop. But going back and watching Brock, man, that dude, like, he worked. Like, that was just really good. Like, I think we enjoyed it being there and got into it being there, but even on TV it translated really well. Like, it was fun to watch, and fun to watch the crowd get behind every single wrestler that got in there, and just watch him just crush people too, and just throw people, like Ricochet getting thrown out, even Morrison getting thrown out. I thought, we talk about how bad the writing is sometimes. The way they wrote that first half of that Royal Rumble was excellent and made me a believer in, okay, Brock Lesnar is really good in the ring and a great worker, and he knows how to put himself over and put other people over as well, because he laid down outside that ring for like a full 10 minutes after that Claymore.
It's weird. As I sit here and look at this roster, I'm looking at the WWE roster right now. It's weird to me that Andrade still has his title. That shows you how much they like him. Like that he broke the wellness policy and then they let him keep his title.
There was isn't there rumors that there's more people coming, more suspensions coming too?
I heard Joe was part of it.
But he can't. He's wrestling on Monday.
Yeah, I guess I don't know.
They put this huge match on Monday, and then someone else said Mysterio.
I want to know, like, this wellness policy, right? Like, what are we talking about when we talk about a wellness policy? Because
they don't release that. You don't know. Because
there are things that they're like, well, we don't want our athletes using, that I'm like, this isn't a real sport. Like, who cares? I'm not saying that people need to be, like, roided up to get huge or something like that, but you should definitely let them use steroids to heal themselves if they're injured, because you'll heal faster. Like, those are the things I don't get.
Well, it's in response to back in the day when, you know, there
those
was
guys
a lot of
really roided.
Yeah, exactly.
Those guys are really roided.
It's a new day. Yes, it is. But it's a situation where I think that's a big response to, like, the past and all the criticism of wrestlers in the past, and obviously enhancement drugs in professional sports is a big deal and a big topic. So I think WWE just followed suit and said, all right, well, we want to be seen as a real sport as well. So we're going to obviously try to take care of our wrestlers and make sure that they're not using these enhancing drugs either.
All right. I'm going to go through these champions. I'm going to say each of their names. And I want you guys to both to respond, and you don't have to go into it. I just want you guys to respond on whether you think you could write their storyline better than it's being written right now. All right, you ready?
Let's do it.
Brock Lesnar.
At this point, no. I'm kind of.
I'm with you guys 100%. As bizarre as it is, Brock Lesnar storyline. It's a cold. It must be a cold day in hell.
Hey, Brock. The year of 2020 is Brock Lesnar's year. The man has showed up on just about every show that he could possibly show up on. I don't think he's missed an episode of anything yet.
And so what? It's all good till he beats somebody, and then Cain Velasquez comes out, and then it's like, okay, I guess we're throwing away Brock Lesnar.
Truth.
The Fiend, Bray Wyatt.
Yes, 100%. I think anybody could do better than Goldberg.
Yeah, I'm on board with the promos and how they're written. I'm not on board with the matchups and who they're feeding him, essentially.
The Kabuki Warriors.
Do I have to say anything?
A newborn baby could throw paint at a canvas and somehow it would write out the words to a better story than they're doing with the Kabuki Warriors. You know why? Because they're not doing anything with the Kabuki Warriors.
That goes back to if they're not doing nothing because they're not 100% healthy,
then take the titles off of them.
Right. But how do you do that if she's not healthy? How do you put her in a match if she's still recovering from a concussion? Unless you just strip them from.
You don't even have to strip them. You put them in the match, and Asuka gets isolated and just gets beat down and just loses. The team that goes against them cheats.
You can't do that, though, because Asuka is this overpowering, goddess of a woman who has been beat by everybody, but they still try to hold on to some, mystery about her, about how she's so wonderful. So you can't do that.
They messed up Asuka when they made her tap out to Charlotte. I will go all the way back.
Either time she's tapped out to her, 100%. That was stupid.
The New Day.
I don't like it. I'm glad they're fighting Miz and Morrison finally, but I feel like we've been kind of stagnant up until this point with them.
Yeah, I mean, what is that story? What is it actually accomplishing? It's kind of nothing. It's just, hey, these two guys that a lot of people like have the belts, and that's about the extent of it.
It's putting four guys together that can work the mic and can build a story and entertain the crowd. That's all it's really.
That's all it is. They're putting them together because all of them can carry a little bit, and they need to take up screen time until they can figure out what they're doing. So they don't let these four people share some screen time and take up and their matches should be good. They're all very athletic, except for the Miz. Really, they're all overly athletic when it comes to certain things. And what the Miz doesn't have in his athleticness, he makes up for in everything else. So I, I can't say I hate the idea of it. I agree with Chris that until this point, it was kind of like, what are we even doing? Because I felt like they were going to lead up to them versus the Usos again at some point, and then that's just not, because the Usos would rather shower people in dog food. But who knows? I'm okay with it at the current state it's in.
Buddy Murphy and Seth Rollins.
No, they don't need the titles. Steven said it before.
Yeah, none. Yeah, that's stupid.
Andrade, the U.S. title.
This one's tricky.
I'm with you. I'm not, just because he broke the wellness policy, that doesn't mean that I think they should have stripped it off of him. I actually am refreshed at the fact that they didn't, because I think he's fine.
And the story seems fine. And
yeah,
obviously, see, here's the thing. Is Andrade the story, or is Zelina Vega the story? Because she tells the story more than Andrade does in that couple there. I mean, she helps push the story forward because she's the one doing all the promos for the most part.
Well, they're one entity in a way.
Right.
I mean, just like every manager or wrestler has ever been. I mean, that goes back to, anybody, really. The days of Paul Bearer and Undertaker. Undertaker, when he came in, wasn't great. But, oh, yeah, Undertaker.
I actually would compare it to Mr. Fuji and Yokozuna.
There you go. Yeah.
Where it's like, a good mouthpiece and a guy who really doesn't have to say much because his presence and his in-ring stuff is going to do it all.
So,
like the early days of Brock Lesnar with Paul Heyman.
Truth.
Our
Yeah.
truth.
I mean, hey, he's still doing it now. I mean, Brock is actually, I think, more entertaining now because he can speak. He's cut promos before in the past, but now he's reverted back to the old Brock Lesnar that doesn't talk barely ever. Or if he does, it's like one or two words and tries to make you laugh. I enjoy this Brock and Paul Heyman combo more than the old one, because you never know when Brock's going to just drop a one-liner on us that might be interesting or funny.
Braun Strowman, the Intercontinental Champion.
There's got to be something better. There's got to be.
It's the Intercontinental Championship.
Is it? Because I don't recognize that title. The title's kind of terrible.
I hate every bit of it. I hate the new title design. I hate Strowman being the champion. Nothing against Strowman. I feel like he deserves a belt at this point, but not that belt. Like, I still think Sami Zayn should have been able to take it. It should and could have been Sami Zayn's first championship. But now that you put it on Strowman, it doesn't. Who's going to legitimately be able to take it off Strowman? Like, what makes sense in that?
Roman Reigns? Roman Reigns has beaten him before. Brock Lesnar's beaten him before.
Who in the mid card is going to take it from him? Roman Reigns, they're just covering him in dog shit until they can get him to face the Fiend at WrestleMania.
You make them lose it by not getting pinned. You do it in a elimination chamber match or some 4-way or something. You can take it off him.
You put him in a battle royal and you count him out, but only him. Because that makes sense. Bayley, the SmackDown Women's Champion.
I feel like she should have dropped it to Miss America over there. Lacey Evans. I couldn't think of her name. I felt like it was time for Evans to get a shot with it, and they could have went back and forth for a month or two and then had the Bayley versus Banks match at WrestleMania, but they didn't. I think the Bayley character is interesting, but it's starting to get a little stale to me.
WWE. I have one thing, all right? And that is this. Please do not use Lacey Evans' daughter anymore for storyline purposes. I don't dislike Lacey Evans. don't dislike her daughter, but I don't like you using kids in storylines. Thank you.
Especially when they're trying to use that whole angle and not give her the win, to where you have that moment where her daughter comes in a ring and holds the belt up with her. Like I feel like they wasted the opportunity and they wasted all that by pulling her in, because they'd used people's family members before, but they made it extremely personal and then just had her lose to the roll up of doom. So it was garbage writing and a garbage way to end that whole story.
And then again with Bayley, I feel like it's easy to write a story better when it's not really getting much love anyway. Becky Lynch. I think that's the last. No, it's not quite the last one. There's one right after Becky Lynch, but Becky Lynch, the Raw Women's Champion.
No. Yeah, it's stale. It's over. I mean, I hate to be like that because I was into it when it first started, but they've messed it up after like the first couple of months. They made Becky look weak by apologizing to Stephanie and made her look weak by losing everything, and ultimately the way she even beat Ronda wasn't even good. The whole storyline has been off the rails for a good year now. I feel like the first half of the year, like first 6 months, great, loved it, loved the man, loved how she was doing it, and then the last year has been just a mess.
So
I agree. Yeah, it's been a lot of unneededness to the whole situation.
our last one is Mojo Rawley. He's a 24/7 champion.
I'm pissed about this.
I'm
so pissed about this.
I'm not
The multiple time U.S. champion, 24/7 champion, multiple.
I like the idea, but they're using the wrong person.
Who's the right person?
Quite frankly, what I would do is Braun Strowman should have the 24/7 championship and be doing this for a little while. He doesn't need to do it forever, but do that storyline for a while. Mojo Rawley should not be in the picture unless he's trying to take the title, and the Intercontinental title should be on Cesaro. So those would be kind of my swaps there. I think you also could put Cesaro in the same position as Mojo Rawley. It might be a little more interesting even with that. Of Cesaro just not even trying to get the 24/7 title. It just like kind of drops in his lap. Like, I don't know, like Truth is doing something goofy and like suddenly comes into a room and Cesaro just like kind of shrugs and just kind of takes it from him. But then Cesaro like does the whole, I'm, not to plagiarize Tyler Bate, but I'm a big, strong boy who can take this off of me.
It's better than what they got with Mojo. This
Mojo's
is
not
against everything what the 24/7 title is. The 24/7 title was entertaining, and Truth was making it entertaining, and it was fun to find out what was going to happen every week or when it was going to show up. I didn't agree with it sometimes, like when they ran in on a women's match and the women's tag match at Clash of Champions. I think that's wrong to do stuff like that, but at the same time, it's interesting otherwise to see it pop up in different areas, and the way they write it in, the way they write Truth the 20,000 times he's won the championship. But this and Mojo Rawley of all people, the guy was laying in the ring after he got Claymore kicked. Why didn't anybody pin him?
Exactly.
Why didn't anybody pin him? That drove me insane this week. Why would you walk into a Claymore, and then why would no one come out and pin him? Where was Truth? Where was the announcer? Where was Riddick Moss? Just pin him. He's laying there in the ring.
And you missed an opportunity to get a nice cheap pop for Drew McIntyre, where Drew McIntyre claymores him, then gets the mic and says, "Hey, Truth, where are you?" And just get him to come out.
Yeah,
that'd
have been good too. Yeah,
I mean,
it just that one actually might anger me more than the Intercontinental title. because at least the Intercontinental title's on somebody who is believable and who's done things. I don't know what Mojo Rawley's done.
So here's the tally, right? And I'm gonna go through it rapid fire, and I'm gonna say good or bad, but again, we're talking about writing, right? So Brock Lesnar good, Fiend bad, Andrade good, Strowman bad, Bayley bad, Becky bad, Rollins bad, Kabuki Warriors bad, New Day bad, Seth Rollins and Murphy bad. It's a lot of bad writing.
I don't know, man. Lately, I don't know if I'm coming off of I'm hungover from the Royal Rumble or something, but last couple weeks of wrestling have been not great. Like there's been a match here or a moment here or there, but and I don't want to be so much of a Debbie Downer. I mean, there's a couple things that I'll talk highly of, but ultimately, I feel like this is supposed to be I don't know, what do you want to call it? The road to revolution, the road to WrestleMania, the road to whatever the next big pay-per-view is for all the different, independents and stuff out there. I just feel like it's coming off of January. Everything's kind of crashed.
Yeah, I mean, even there was things for me in AEW that had potential and then were letdowns, right? So, and I kind of knew some of them were going to happen, right? So, super happy to see Yuka Sakazaki back, right? But she's fighting Britt Baker, and we were talking about that last week. They're trying so hard to build this Britt Baker character up, and I don't know that I care about it.
I'll give it time. I said this on Twitter. I'll give it time, but the in-ring stuff has to get better. It has to get better. And she has no freaking rhythm or chemistry with anyone yet. I haven't seen it. I haven't seen one women's wrestler that works with her in the ring that it looks fluid. It looks good. There's got to be one, right? There's got to be somebody she can work with.
Yeah.
It just hasn't happened yet.
But like I said, the AEW suffers from the same. AEW's got 3 stories that I think are working. And it has to do with most of the main players, right? So the story with Hangman Page kind of having issues with the Young Bucks is kind of working, right? Unwilling to tag them in, creating, issues between him and Cody and the Young Bucks. That's now on the scale of interesting, that's the low man on the totem pole though. Moxley kind of making his way through inner circle people has been kind of interesting. And then the one really good story that they've got going for them is the Cody story. And the Cody MJF stuff has been great. And the Lashes stuff, the 10 Lashes stuff, it was good. It was very good.
Yeah, I mean, you hit it on the head. I mean,
but that's a problem.
I know it's the elite guys basically running the show, getting the better stories, and they don't really have a lot for everybody else. They're trying with SCU and the Dark Order. They're trying with the women's division, which is just not working anywhere. I still think the AEW's biggest mistake, and I don't know if this is AEW or if it's the wrestlers themselves, the Lucha Brothers need to be broken up. They need to be singles wrestlers because those are 2 stories that you could take and put anywhere in the division and anywhere on the show, and you've just created a good 40 minutes to an hour of interesting story and wrestling. So putting them together and keeping them together and constantly having them wrestle against the Young Bucks is getting old, or it is old. It's not even getting old, and it needs to change. I think that's the biggest change they can make that would make a better product week to week.
It's interesting though, as I think about AEW and I think about all these people that are getting pushed in a certain direction, and I wonder if I were a writer, if my response to myself would be, well, it's the fans. The fans make storylines live or die, and the biggest problem is the fans aren't buying into the stories that we're trying to push. Now, a counter argument to that might be, well, you need to push better stories and they'd be more interested in it. But at the same time, what if they're just on the fence always about certain stories? I don't know.
I've been to a live event. I can tell what fans are into and not into.
Well, that's kind of where I'm coming at. Like that's an issue for me because I don't understand the fans anymore. I'm just not there anymore. I've watched too much wrestling. It's weird that I was probably more closer connected to the fans when the three of us, or the OGs here, right, who used to go to the bar and drink and talk about wrestling before this podcast ever started. The three of us, I feel like I was more connected then than I am now. After doing this podcast for almost a year, I don't get it anymore. I don't understand why people get over. And I don't want to get too much into it because I know I talked about it last week a lot. But I don't know, man. I feel disconnected to a certain extent at this point. And maybe that's why after what we're calling that hangover of sorts, is it a hangover or is it after everything's all said and done, we just getting more and more disconnected from it and not understanding, like, it's difficult to remove yourself from being critical, but we're in this position where we can't help it. And, the being so critical of it kind of takes us out of it to a certain extent. Like there's not a perfect example would be the Fiend. There's nothing they can do with the Fiend at this point that's ever gonna make me understand their decisions, because they put themselves in a corner and they're not going to right the ship. So no matter what they do, it's wrong, in my opinion. But the fans still love it.
I think there's a way to write something interesting out of Superstar Showdown for the Fiend going into WrestleMania.
We'll pitch it.
I think you have the opportunity, because we've been talking about this a little bit. Steven's talked about this for years. The idea of Undertaker handing over the torch to Bray Wyatt, and I think you could do it at Superstar Showdown. You have Goldberg and the Fiend go at it. I mean, you could have a non-match if you want, or you could have him no sell. Either way, I could see them doing it this way. And then ultimately the Fiend just, doesn't relent. He continues to just take out Goldberg or keep the mandible claw on him or whatever. And the lights go out, but it's not the Fiend's lights going out, and the lights come back on with a gong, and it's the Undertaker, and you don't have an interaction, don't have any it's just a stare down, and that starts the storyline going into WrestleMania. That's the only thing that makes sense to me right now for the Fiend, is to take on Taker. I thought it was going to happen at the Royal Rumble, and I still think it could happen. I still think it should happen, because I think that's the right match for the Fiend right now. He needs that one extra push into the stratosphere, and then we can figure it out from there, how we get this title off of him, or move on to him just being that next big thing that the Undertaker was, that he should have gotten the torch handed to him years ago. And otherwise, we're just looking at Roman Reigns and the Fiend, and none of us want that. None of us are interested in the Fiend losing to Roman Reigns at WrestleMania. So that's what I'm hoping for, and that's the only thing I could see coming out of Superstar Showdown that's even worth watching that show.
You know what's something I have an issue with?
I know a lot of things.
Everything.
Yeah, I know. I'm sorry, guys. I'm kind of negative. But
Debbie Downer Day.
There's been these spots, right? Recently with Rhea Ripley and Charlotte Flair and Bianca Belair. Has everybody taken crazy pills and forgot that Bianca Belair isn't really that good of a wrestler one-on-one?
she's good on the mic. She's good. She's a good
Yeah.
character, and she's good at, to your point, she's good in a triple threat match. She's good in a fatal 4-way. One-on-one, yeah, it's not quite there. So you got to hide her in a triple threat. You got to hide her in a 4-way match. I wonder, and again, this is a possibility at Portland. Does Charlotte interject herself into that match at some point, interfere, and we have a triple threat at WrestleMania? Is that what we're building towards? I mean, is that the angle we want to see? Charlotte,
Why?
Rhea, and Bianca? I don't know. Bianca Belair could be something. I mean, I again, another person that I'm going to give a little bit of slack to because she's been good on the mic. She's a good character. She's shown glimpses of good wrestling. It's putting it all together.
Can I call you out though?
It's a Shayna Baszler thing.
Because you definitely did not give her a break back when she had a match against Shayna and she was horrible.
It was a terrible match.
We turned on her so hard because we were actually excited about it, and it was so bad.
Yeah, I mean, she was exposed at that point. But again, like Shayna Baszler is my litmus test. Like, she's the one that I'm always going to go back to and say I was really hard on her in the beginning, and she really proved me wrong. For a long time, I was, like, she's not good enough. She can't wrestle. And she's got to the point now where I'm excited to see her wrestle anybody. And I want to give other people that opportunity too.
Yeah, but at what point, and it seems to be coming very fast because, again, we take all the developmental talent and compare them to Shayna. At what point has Shayna's pedestal been solidified and we say, it's not so much that we say, well, Shayna Baszler was able to do it, but like, not everybody's Shayna Baszler.
Yeah, let's see what happens. Let's see what happens at Portland, because this would be the second or third time that Bianca Belair has gotten a title shot.
What's the card at Portland at this point?
Rhea Ripley, Bianca Belair, Johnny Gargano, Finn Balor, Ciampa versus Cole, Undisputed Era versus the Broserweights, whatever the heck they call themselves. Probably be Dream versus Roddy. I think that's it. I think that covered all the angles they're working on right now. Maybe a cruiserweight title. That's a lot. That's
more
actually
than 5 matches. They usually only do 5.
Yeah, they might not do Dream and Roddy. I don't know. That's just what it looked like coming out of Wednesday night.
I didn't see it because I'm waiting to watch it with Sarah and Chaz. But I had heard that he pulled like off his pants, and he had like pants that were kind of poking at Roddy's wife or whatever.
It missed. Yeah, it unfortunately the whole spot missed for me. Like, I love Dream and I love that he's back, but it was obvious that that's what was happening. He comes out, he's standing on the turnbuckle, he jumps down, he rips off his pants. The pants don't rip off right, and no one makes mention of him. No one makes mention of the pants. No one really could see the pants. I had to go on Twitter later on and like zoom in or have somebody discuss the fact that it was his wife and his kid on Dream's pants, which is great. I love that Rick Rude stuff, but it missed. Like, it wasn't as good of a pop, and it wasn't as good of a spot that it could have been.
Well, I'm just glad that even though Dream was on network television for a week or two, really, before he was kind of out of action, I'm glad that he's back, and that the people that have taken a chance on watching NXT have a chance to get introduced to him that don't know him. He's obviously a very talented wrestler, very into his craft. Maybe too into his craft from my standpoint as a fan, having met him before with you. But I can't hate on that. I mean,
is NXT log jammed right now?
Oh yeah, we've talked about this before. It definitely is. It definitely is. And it's interesting that you tell me that card and you say, Johnny Gargano versus Finn Balor, And I have two responses to it. Like, my initial response is, that'll be a good match. And then immediately after that, it's like, why is Finn Balor on NXT? I'm not saying that it doesn't work, but he definitely contributes to that logjam. Whereas one-off matches, I get a little bit more. Like, I think the idea of Flair challenging Rhea Ripley for that title for WrestleMania is the absolute best thing that they could have done for Charlotte Flair. It was kind of the thing I wasn't expecting, and I was really like, oh my God, please don't get me Charlotte Flair Becky again. I'm done with it. I don't want to see it again. Give me time before I see it again. So I really like that, but I don't think that that's a permanent thing, right? It's just like it's a one-off. It's like, the problem comes in, and I don't think that this is the case. The problem comes in is if Charlotte Flair wins that match. But I don't think that that's the end game. I think the end game is to push Rhea Ripley to the moon. But if Charlotte Flair wins that match, that's an interesting dynamic.
Well, what's the WrestleMania women's matches right now? If we were booking it, what are the 3 women's matches at WrestleMania weekend? Because I don't know what. Let's just assume Takeover is Saturday night or Friday night or whatever they're going to do it, and WrestleMania on Sunday.
Well, they have to get the stories down, but if I were a betting man, I would say, without any super surprises, would say it's most likely Becky versus Shayna Baszler, Rhea Ripley versus Charlotte Flair, and if Bayley's getting a match, it's going to be... They could do Lacey Evans again. I mean, I'm kind of with you. I'd like to see them do Sasha, but they haven't done any build for it. So I'm tentative to say her, but possibly Lacey Evans again. I don't know.
Something's wrong with Sasha. She hasn't been cleared for a while. That's why she wasn't at the Rumble. She was at the Rumble, but she wasn't cleared. Something's wrong. I don't know what it is, but something's wrong.
So I'm a little confused with that one. I mean, you could throw somebody like, gosh, nah. You know what? I didn't even know. I don't know. Throw Ember Moon at it or something. I saw Ember Moon was on apparently on backstage the other day, right? So maybe they're getting ready to bring her back. That could be interesting. You could also bring somebody like Nia Jax back. I don't know. That one's kind of rough because it's really like you get those 3 title matches, and then it's all about you have a women's battle royal basically, and I think that's the extent of women's wrestling at Mania. I'd be surprised. No
tag belts.
I don't have faith, man. I don't have faith. I mean, prove me wrong, WWE, but I don't have faith. I mean, who are they going to go up against? Let alone if they're going to be cleared, but who are they going to go up against?
There's no, I mean, Fire and Desire and the Iconics are the only other 2 tag teams, unless you want to do Bliss and Nikki Cross, which I still don't believe is a tag team.
So the Iconics, we haven't seen them forever, and it's not going to happen with Fire and Desire because I feel like they've put a little bit of time into that story and pushing it in a certain direction. And that direction is not towards the tag team belts. So
they're gonna make it Lana and Liv Morgan going after him. I almost want to put money on it. I hate it, but
What do you mean, Lana and Liv Morgan?
They're having this whole feud, and they're gonna end up with Ruby coming in attacking Liv. It's gonna end up having Lana save her at some point, and they're gonna make them a team and do the whole lesbian angle with the 2 of them, and then put them together in a feud for the belts.
That feels like a stretch for me because that's not the vibe I was getting when Ruby Riott attacked Liv Morgan in the first place. I mean, if anything, I could see Lana being with Ruby Riott, but I don't even know if that's the case. I think really all you were doing with Ruby Riott and I don't know if you agree with this or not, Chris. This feels like something you would say. All you've done when you insert Ruby Riott into the Lana Liv Morgan thing is you say, we tried to give her a shot, but Lana's a really horrible wrestler, so let's put a halfway decent wrestler in there with Liv Morgan. And so create a wrestling match where you still have Lana as kind of like the mouthpiece, like making things happen, but then you have two good wrestlers fighting each other.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. like the whole. I think this is why you're pegging that on me, is because the whole Lana Liv thing for me was like, oh, okay, take Lashley and Rusev out of this, and I'm not terribly upset about watching Lana eat pins, and keep losing. But yeah, you interject Ruby Riott, and it's like, well, is the story over between Lana and Liv? Is it just because you don't trust Lana to have a strong match with Liv? Which,
I think it's that one.
Yeah, it's probably that one. I don't know, man. I'm with James. I don't know if I could see Liv and Lana tagging. It just, I don't think they trust Lana enough to do that. Granted, look at the Iconics. They're not exactly great wrestlers either. All in all, I don't see the tag titles going anywhere, period. I don't see them even having a tag title match at WrestleMania. And I don't see the purpose in having the tag titles in the women's division. Dissolve it, give them a mid-card title. I'd be more interested in that.
You know what I would do? I would give the tag team belts to a impromptu tag team that they build a little bit in NXT and let them defend that title in NXT sometimes. I bet you we would see it more. Because they got a lot of women in development in NXT, right? And a lot that can get a lot out of doing tag matches for exactly the same reason we talk about, Bianca shining in triple threat matches and four-way matches. Well, that those tag team matches, those are your opportunities to like build those people and like workshop those people and try to close the gaps. And that's the great thing about tag team wrestling. You don't have to be the full package if the other person you're with kind of completes the total package for the both of you, if that makes sense. I don't know.
But isn't that, I pause because isn't that what we complain about with the Rollins and Buddy Murphy pairing and taking the tag titles? It's this impromptu tag team pulling it and taking it away from real tag teams?
No, because they're both complete wrestlers. That's where the problem is. So if you put two wrestlers that didn't quite like, so God, I even hate to say this, but like in a way, when they first kind of debuted as a tag team, we slightly complained about Bobby Roode and Dolph Ziggler. And I actually think that when they had more of the spotlight on them, they actually complemented each other very well. So I would be more primed to use an example like that versus Buddy Murphy, who I think got the full package, and Seth Rollins, which definitely has the full package. Like, that's when it gets confusing. Like, what are you doing? Like, why are you pairing these two guys together? I mean, I pairing them like in the faction made sense, but pairing them as a tag team, that's when it doesn't make sense. That's why the Matt Riddle, Pete Dunne, Broserweight thing is also confusing, because it's like, well, I mean, Matt Riddle's becoming a pretty complete wrestler, and Pete Dunne's definitely a complete wrestler. So why are we going to go through the motions of, putting them in a tag team and possibly taking, the belts off of O'Reilly and Fish, which are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? You're taking it off of a complete tag team at that point. because I can't imagine Fish and O'Reilly as singles wrestlers. Now I've seen them wrestle singles like matches, but there is a certain part of their identity within Undisputed Era that comes from the pairing of them as like the tag team of the group. If you have Matt Riddle and the bruiserweight take it off of him, like that's hate to say it, that's bad NXT writing.
Well, at that point, you might as well just take the title off of Cole and just send them all packing and send them all up to one of the other shows. Because what's left for them on NXT if you're just going to strip them of all their titles?
Exactly.
And all the aura that they have.
Exactly. It's kind of, but maybe that's their end game, right? Maybe their end game is to have the titles switch and have them move up because there's other people that they want to push, and everybody needs a turn. And the interesting thing about Adam Cole versus any of the other champions is throughout everything he's been able to make it feel like the title being on him is a very relevant thing, and it's not like he's not overstaying his welcome. Still, he's had it for a while and he's still not overstaying his welcome because they use him and he keeps it interesting. I mean, that's where the onus comes on the wrestler, right? Where we're saying, the Becky Lynch stuff, yeah, the writing's bad, but you're also a little bad too. You're a little to blame too, Becky Lynch. You're not keeping it relevant for us. You're not making that story work for you.
I have trouble blaming the wrestlers too much. I mean, yes, when they can't do something with a story at all, then it's on them. But if they can't continue a story over and over and over and over again, and it gets stale, I mean, that's tough. I mean, at some point you have to realize that you need to make a change, and that's not just the wrestler. That's more the writing and the producers saying, all right, this has run its course, what's next? Because otherwise you end up, I mean, even Stone Cold Steve Austin, like he jumped around a little bit. His story's changed. He was aligning with people you didn't think he was going to align with, or he was going up against Vince, or he was, the goofy Stone Cold with his wife with him, or he was the badass Stone Cold taking out people with the beer truck. Like there was different stories written into that where it wasn't the same Stone Cold every single time. And it's not just the wrestlers writing this stuff. There's writers, there's producers working with them on it. So I blame the wrestlers a little bit for making it not work the first time, but when it's got to be done, like the Becky Lynch the man gimmick, a year and a half in, what else do we have to do with it? Like there's got to be, at this point, just become a whiny heel.
What are we, episode? What episode are we on? Episode 46. I just got the title as you're sitting there talking. Episode 45. Writers suck, or something like that. Wrestling writers are horrible. I don't know.
All right. Enough with the Debbie Downer stuff. I'm changing the direction of this train because it's going into a freaking mountain right now.
Well, we've been talking for an hour 13, so we've got about
17
minutes to right the ship.
Here it is, right now.
Convince everybody right now. Again, single stuff Oreos. Yes.
No. Randy freaking Orton.
I'm wearing my Randy Orton shirt right now.
Randy freaking Orton. Oh my Lanta, that guy barely said maybe 3 or 4 words and worked that crowd perfectly.
I watched the breakdown of it. He said a total of 20 words, and he repeated most of them for the most part. It was like 8 different words through the whole entire promo. It was amazing.
Again, we've had times where we've grown tired of Randy, but I think it's more Michael Cole and how he promotes the wrestlers, Randy, Roman, etc., Sasha Banks. Randy Orton is an excellent wrestler. Randy Orton is excellent on the mic. Randy Orton knows how to play the crowd. He knows how to play a character, and he knows how to play that sadistic, evil heel perfectly.
It's the right
And
program.
he nailed it. He nailed it.
Yeah, it's the right program. But but the thing is, if he wasn't in this program, I'd still be Randy Orton hating. And I was, to be fair, before I even gave him a shot, I'll admit this, I was Edge hating. And if Edge was paired with anybody else, like I said last week, if the original plan was Edge versus AJ, then, it's almost a blessing in disguise that didn't happen, because this is much better than that.
Yeah, I mean, often we get better pairings from injuries or situations. I mean, I even said it on the Raw this week because of the snowstorm that was in Salt Lake. It was interesting, and there was some nice call ups and stuff. I think because of the snowstorm, so they tried to do some stuff. So, man, that Randy Orton promo was great. Again, we were Debbie Downers for most of the show, but we got to push the fact that Edge is coming back. He's here, but he's not taking up so much TV time where it's like, I want to wrestle every match. I want to be, the highlight of every show. No, they're doing it very eloquently, and they're doing it perfectly, where Edge is the babyface and Orton's the heel, and it's going to be a good match at WrestleMania. I mean, they're going to have a good build for the next, month and a half.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited for that. I just I guess my only thing that I wonder about is why they can't replicate that in other areas. I mean, it's kind of like an easy story if you think about it. But there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, it's not an insult, right? It can be a compliment.
Write good writing, easy or not. Write good writing. If it's good, write it. Yeah, I don't care if it's easy. Just do it.
And I think with their history together too, it makes it easier for them. And there's already that chemistry there. They've already basically laid the groundwork years ago, and it made sense. And they can do that with other areas. They don't stick with anything.
Yeah, I'm excited for it. I think it's got a whole hell of a lot of potential, and I never thought I'd say that about a Randy Orton match ever again, quite frankly.
Here's another guy that surprised me over the last month or so, Jordan Devlin, and his meteoric rise to the Cruiserweight Championship, and now, going out and having all these matches on all the shows and taking the Cruiserweight title to different shows. That guy's got something. I mean, he was a bit of a cookie cutter Finn Balor at first, but I don't know, him as a heel having some pretty decent matches. I mean, him and Tyler Breeze had a good match. It was fun to watch. And if he can continue those really stellar matches, and he had the 205 Live, they had was it a triple threat or a 4-way match? That was a good one too. I mean, Devlin's got something, and I think the Cruiserweight title over the last 6 months or so, between Leo Rush getting it and Garza getting it and Devlin getting it, like I'm all in on the Cruiserweight title. I think they've done a really good job getting that title back in the picture and making it, mean something again.
Yeah. God, I mean, I remember that being like flipping shocking almost when we were at Worlds Collide that they even transferred it over. But, it's a solid way of them pushing NXT UK, actually. And so if the idea is, let's push the UK brand and allow that brand to be the new kind of developmental show, which is probably the smart thing to do, and then just reduce the logjam that is NXT and just keep all like your big players there, it definitely has interesting potential.
Speaking of NXT UK, go check out what Trent Seven's doing over there with this no padded turnbuckle stuff that he wants to do. I mean, for a guy who's got a bit of an odd body, he's a fun guy to watch in the ring, and he does some stuff and takes some bumps that are impressive. So NXT UK is definitely worth a watch. I know it's on a weird time. It's like Thursday afternoons, but luckily it's on the WWE network and you can go back and watch it whenever you want. So.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you're watching it at all, you have to have the WWE network anyway, so you have the ability to watch it. If you do, you do. Like, right? I mean, whatever.
I mean, did you the bump that Seven took at Blackpool when he freaking Dennis just threw him out of the ring, like power bomb through or Razor's Edge threw him out of the ring onto somebody outside the ring. It's crazy what he does for a big dude. He almost takes bumps like Kevin Owens. He takes these bumps that you wouldn't expect a bigger guy to take.
Yeah,
fun to watch.
It's fun when those guys do that. It's that's what makes me dislike those old school big guys sometimes, though. I mean, I've got room for a couple of them, but it's amazing to me how much better of a big guy, for instance, that Walter is than, let's say, a Strowman. I think Walter's much more effective because of that kind of that old school. Like, the thing you're always waiting for with him is like the big chops, and you're like, oh god, when is somebody going to die to a chop?
What if Walter takes out Strowman and takes the title from him? Just shows up on SmackDown, challenges Strowman, and beats him and takes the Intercontinental title, and then takes the Intercontinental title to the NXT UK.
I mean,
that could be.
I think at this point it's your fantasy to have them take all of the belts that you love to NXT so that they don't get used the wrong way.
Yes. Take them all to the right show.
I mean, I think that's an interesting idea. I don't see it happening, though. Just like anything else we talk about, you know what I mean? It's we have our head in the clouds, but that's not a bad thing. So, hot takes time. Who wants to go first? Who wants to go last?
What's a hot take?
A hot take.
I was about to ask the same thing.
You can talk. Is a hot take on anything you want, man.
Man, we've had like a bunch of hot takes today. Can I go back to my Angel Garza love?
Yeah, go for it.
I love that guy. I really think everyone needs to go take some time and go watch some of his matches in NXT, some of his match he just had, his match even at Worlds Collide. I mean, Angel Garza, I think, is the second coming of Eddie Guerrero. I think if he plays a similar character, if he continues his in-ring ability, he could be great. And I like Steven's idea of the Latino World Order. I mean, I would love them to do it with the bad guys, with Garza, with Andrade, and I'd be all in. And I love Garza, and I want to see more of him, and I hope he gets the continued push even after they bring back Andrade from his 30-day suspension.
I agree, but I'm just like you jumping back. I'm going to jump back to Strowman winning the IC belt being probably the dumbest move they could have done with Strowman. I still feel like Sami Zayn deserves a belt at this point in his career. And is he not like fit to be in the ring? Like what's going on with him? Why ain't they letting him wrestle? Because he's an amazing wrestler. And it would have been a great program for him and Nakamura going back and forth with the IC belt. Could have had some amazing matches. Like what the hell's going on?
Man, I don't know. He had like a shoulder issue at some point, but it's never been said that he's like not cleared. It's kind of like the Sasha Banks thing. Like no one's saying that they're not cleared, but at the same time, neither one of them are wrestling.
I just had like this weird flashback of always talking wrestling with you guys in the bar, and one of those weird opinions that I had of Steven was like, good God, all this guy does is talk about Becky Lynch and Sami Zayn.
Well, you used to say, "Oh my God, all he talks about is Becky Lynch and Kofi Kingston." So now I'm Kingston.
Oh,
had his
yeah,
day
I'm
in the
sorry.
sun. It was ended. It was ended the worst way possible. He got a little bit, of I guess a happier ending at the Rumble because the altercations with Brock with the three in there was good. I enjoyed that. But yeah, Sammy is very underrated in WWE. Everything he did in Ring of Honor, everything his body of work is amazing. I still think they should have gave him and KO the tag belts at one point. Yes, he was hurt, but it's been about a year since he's been back on TV, and they've not let him do anything. And I'm just, I'm telling you, it could have been the end of a match, and he gets in there and he just hits Nakamura with the Helluva kick and just ran with it. But no,
You guys think about Killer Cross being signed to NXT? Or I don't know if he signed to NXT, but signed to WWE in general.
He's at the Performance Center, so it's a question of let's see, what they do with him. I think anybody starting in NXT with WWE is a good move, so I'm looking forward to it. Who's the person who's come through NXT to start that hasn't at least developed into something interesting? Like the ones that don't develop are the ones that they expect to go straight to WWE and everyone recognize them right away. So I think it works perfectly.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of people out there that are under the thought process that Killer Cross isn't a great fit with WWE, but we'll have to see. I'm sure everybody can be a good fit with WWE if you just write it right for them. You know what I mean? I can't imagine it going that bad. So, what's my hot take going to be this week? That is an interesting question. Let me think here. We've talked about bad writers. We've talked about all the different shows and everything that could be going wrong. I think...
So you can give some more praise to MJF and that Cody angle with the lashings. That was nice.
I think that my hot take is this. Wrestling fans on Twitter, why do you got to be so weird sometimes? One of the things that makes me quite uncomfortable on Twitter is when you see these posts from people that after a while they kind of like profess their love for a wrestler, like, oh, this is legitimate, I really love this person, blah 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 blah. Have you ever seen those tweets before, Chris and Steven?
Yeah.
Weird. And I don't think believe me, I don't think it's all of my access to Twitter is just wrestling. So I judge it on that. I'm sure that this happens all over the place, but wrestling Twitter, can we do a couple things? Can we A, not be creepy, B, not ever be just obsessed with one wrestler, and C, listen to other people's opinions and not get angry at them all the time? I mean, if it's a hostile opinion, I get that, right? But if it's just, somebody giving like a good bit, like I guess I'm confused as to why you would unfollow people for that. Like, so there are people that follow me on Twitter that if they don't listen to the podcast. They follow me on Twitter, but they don't listen to the podcast, because if they did, they would hear me say certain things or be critical of certain people, and they would unfollow me just because I had an opinion about somebody that they didn't agree with. Why is it in this country, but I'm doing this specifically for the wrestling community, that you can't have another opinion and you don't want to interact with those people that have another opinion? Because when you're at a show, when you're at a wrestling show, that differing of opinion is what makes the match better for you. So all those people at the Rumble that were rooting for Roman Reigns, they found that win to be more exciting because of all the people like me and Chris who were yelling at them and telling them to bend the knee to Baron Corbin. This natural competition that comes out of having differing opinions is healthy for everything, especially wrestling, and it makes the storylines better. And when all you do is shut yourself off and are just interested in one type of wrestler and just think that that wrestler is so amazing, and you just surround yourself with people that just think that that wrestler is amazing, what you do is you create this giant community that then the writers look at and say, well, this person's really over on Twitter and this and that and that, and they push them to the moon, even though it's not always the right choice. And you, Twitter, and you, fans, you are the ones that have that power, and you're misusing that power because you just want to like one person. Enjoy wrestling. It can all be pretty good, but when we as fans don't expect good wrestling, we don't get good wrestling. When we don't hold these shows and the writers accountable, you get what we have here the last few weeks, where, yeah, there's a couple storylines working, but is it really working that much? You know, the AEW fanboys might get mad at me because they're like, oh, AEW story is all really good. Is it, though? I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong.
He's not wrong.
This has been words of wisdom from Dr. Jim.
So, yeah. Interact with each other. Interact with the wrestling community. I know that the podcast and the wrestling community as a whole, they really like to interact with fans, and they all are more like us in that there's not like, yeah, they might have wrestlers that they dislike, but I feel like they're going to be critical at the right times, and they're going to know when something has run its course, and they'll banter with you just like we'll banter with you. But that's what you got to do, guys. That's what you got to do. That's been our time. So make sure you like, subscribe, share this podcast with people you love, people you hate, people you're indifferent to, strangers out in public. Walk up to a stranger in public and say, listen to the Bald Monkeys Wrestling Podcast. It might not be very good PR for us, but if we even get one stranger listening, then we'll have one more view.
And then tweet us about it, and we'll reshare it for you.
Do you like that? Yeah, but again, thank you as always for listening. We not had no Captain Chuckles today. We did have the boss Stephen Hill and Christopher and myself, Big Baby Jimmy.
I think we should go back to sleep for the day.
I believe that would probably be accurate, but I actually have to get myself ready and go see my parents. They want to take me out for my birthday a little bit early.
Fun. My kid, I hear him in the other room wanting waffles, so I think I'm going to make waffles.
Waffles!
Cool. So Chris is going to sleep. The boss is making waffles. And I'm dragging my butt up to Charlotte to go eat somewhere and be fat like I always am. All right.
No shame. No shame.
So it's been a wonderful time. We'll talk to you guys later, as if we're having a conversation with the people listening to the podcast. We'll see you next week. Talk to you later. God, I just did it again.